Author of the book Sapiens, Yuval Noah Harari, has written two books on what may be the future. One is titled Homo Deus and another is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. He gives a particular idea of future. Of course, he is not saying that is sure to happen, but he is only saying it as a possibility. But though he says it as a possibility, most of his emphasis on future is on one particular dimension, that is about technology. Okay. So today we are going to discuss his ideas of future and we will evaluate them. Number one. First thing he is saying is that technology. He is giving technology as the primary force of change. Very reasonable. But which technology he is talking about? Artificial intelligence plus genetic engineering. These two, artificial intelligence plus genetic engineering. Within genetic engineering, two aspects. Genetic editing. That is one. And another, biometric data. Biometric data. Okay. The extent and limitations of genetic editing we already discussed. Biometric data we have not discussed. And genetic engineering, and of course also entire genetic field, biotechnology, operating on artificial intelligence. How artificial intelligence operates, we discussed when we discussed Cambridge Analytica. Okay. So he is saying these two technologies put together are going to change the world in many fundamentally different ways. So he's saying how technology is going to change the 21st century. Okay. But how are these two things going to be combined? He is saying like this. Take a man. A person, because of social media, is giving so much data, leaving so much data through variety of platforms. As of now, the data is about what is happening outside the body. But soon, there is going to be data about what is happening inside the body, which is called biometric data. When you are reading Kindle, Kindle is reading you. Why? Because Kindle can see where you stopped, where you reflected, where you underlined, what points you wrote, and then what are all the books you read, what is the connection across the books, what kind of people read these books, Which quotations did you like? What kind of people like those quotations? So, Kindle is remembering you, reading you, and analyzing it with the help of others who read that book or similar books. Okay, and then with a biometric data, it may even see increased blood pressure, brain activity, tension, heartbeat. So if book reading is attached to biometric data for some purpose or for a different purpose, then you get to know so much of data. And that data compared with others. Okay, Kindle is only one example. Compared with others, Harari thinks that between a man and an algorithm will know more. This is his main point. Why? You are already giving so much data that you yourself can't remember, but algorithm remembers. And whereas you know only about yourself, algorithm knows many other people and it compares, analyzes. And finally, it knows what kind of a person you are. What kind of a person? And what are your likes, dislikes, attitudes? What you are likely to do? And what may be best for you? So, Harari thinks, given the YouTube videos you watch, books you read, books you order, kind of friends you have, newspaper articles that you read, all those things put together, artificial intelligence may be in a better position to tell you who will be a good girlfriend, or whom you should marry. Because the database of algorithm is much more than you have. You only know very little about yourself. Whereas it knows so much about you, it remembers, and it has a pattern. So he compares it with Google Maps. We go by Google Maps rather than by our memory of past route. When the Google Map says there is likely to be traffic here, then we will try to avoid that. And if we don't follow the map, we may not reach the destination. So when we have an experience of not following the map and failing to reach destination, next time we won't even try to do things independently. We will go by Google Map. So we may even lose the memory of many routes. Like we are not good at calculating now, calculating with numbers because we have a calculator. Earlier we used to calculate using mind. Earlier we used to remember phone numbers. Now we don't. So Harari says the way you gave your decisions and lost some of your mental faculties to certain apps, instruments, you are in general going to lose yourself to an algorithm. He says Anna Karenina may ask whether she should leave her husband or stay with her husband and avoiding an affair. Okay, so he thinks technology is moving in that direction. That's one thing. Next, second aspect. Second aspect is about society. Because of artificial intelligence, many people will be able to do things that they require without humans. So he thinks society will be divided into those with resources, very few, and many without resources. This is somewhat similar to Marxian prediction of what happens at the end of capitalism. I don't know if Harari recognizes it or not, but this is similar to Marxian prediction. Few people and a large mass of what Harari calls useless people. Marx called it proletariat. He said it is progressive miserization of the proletariat and few capitalists. Harari also is saying it is something like this only. Few people and useless. These few people will use technology. Technology to render many useless, that is number one. But one more thing which Marx did not think of. Because these people have genetic engineering, they are going to upgrade themselves. Which means they will be Homo Deus. So when Harari talked about Homo Deus, he was not talking about Homo Deus of the entire people. Few people will be Homo Deus and many will remain useless. So artificial intelligence is rendering many useless, and genetic engineering is enabling the elite to upgrade themselves. So he says, for the first time, economic inequalities are going to be biological inequalities. Biological inequalities in terms of intelligence, height, age, life expectancy, health, like this, biological inequalities. Because some people are going to upgrade themselves, whereas many others are going to be useless. So, two things he is talking about. Uselessness, that is one, and next, whoever are participating, they are subordinated to algorithms. Okay, algorithms control human beings and also make them useless. And all the technology is working to the advantage of the elite. Okay. So when people ask him, maybe everybody will be benefited, like in industrial revolution, where industrial revolution may have helped only few in the beginning, but later it helped everybody it contributed to the prosperity of the mankind. But Harari thinks, but this time it is not going to happen, because this is a much more serious intervention and it will take place very fast, and the elite will not give any opportunity to the useless to improve themselves, because useless are really not needed. Whereas industrial revolution required people, required cheap labor, but now that cheap labor component is removed. So some countries themselves may become backward if they don't resort to this technology, or the elite or homo deus across the countries will form a superior race, and the useless will form an inferior race. And he thinks this may even lead to what is called speciation, that is Homo sapiens splitting into two species. And this kind of speciation requires force, manipulation, and which means subversion of institutions of democracy and market, and going for totalitarian systems. So authoritarian and totalitarian systems are required, and democracy, market, institutions based on liberalism will be sidelined or undermined. Okay, and he also says that technology on the whole is undermining free will. Why? Because AI is telling everybody what is best to a person. So people will lose trust in themselves and trust in algorithm. And they will trust in algorithm for medical advice, for psychological therapy, for legal help, and also to know which is a better government. It means that their decisions themselves are not based on their own thinking, because all thinking is manipulated, or people have inherently accepted the superiority of an algorithm. Okay, so this is the scenario that Harari thinks is a very, very serious possibility. Okay, we will examine this. So let us discuss how valid are these observations. Number one, man versus AI. AI may collect lot of data, but to think that man will ask AI, who is a good girlfriend, ask and go by the advice, I think this is not going to happen. He may ask, why? Because AI has more data. AI knows so much about him, and so it can advise. But whether he will go by advice, this is not necessary. What AI gives is that he gives some information. But man will think that he has many alternatives, options. And finally, he will decide, and not AI. So I don't think AI is going to be in such a position where man will lose or willingly submit his free will to AI. So man will make use of it rather than go by the advice, which means there is going to be free will. Why is it so? This is not an ultimate answer. One major mistake that Harari makes is that he knows that intelligence and consciousness are different. He knows that. But he thinks they are so completely decoupled that lot of intelligence is possible even without consciousness. This is where I disagree. We have done enough to show that consciousness-based intelligence is of much superior quality compared to intelligence which is not consciousness-based. The way you read Kindle is different from the way Kindle reads you. Kindle can never understand. Kindle can get patterns and patterns, but it doesn't have emotions to judge. So, its patterning has some limitations, whereas you, with limited information, has a clue to the pattern, some intuition. So Harari is grossly overestimating intelligence which is not supported by consciousness. So there is a limit to what AI can be because AI is not going to be conscious. Another thing is, Harari is not very clear about how consciousness comes. He knows now computers are not conscious, but he thinks maybe when intelligence increases it may be conscious. But we know that is not at all going to be like that. Consciousness is a completely different thing, and the way artificial intelligence is taking shape, it may be more intelligent, more and more intelligent, but they are never going to be conscious. This we discussed. And because they are not going to be conscious, their intelligence is of a different nature and it can never match the kind of judgment that humans will have. Because humans decide by emotions, intuition, and feeling pleasure and pain. Those things computers will not have. So humans are not going to completely depend on AI. That is one thing about consciousness. And another thing is, Harari doesn't see finally how data is converted to advice. Data is converted to advice. For AI to advise who is a better girlfriend is not easy. AI has the data. First of all, as we have seen in Cambridge Analytica, how is data classified? It is humans. How are patterns found and suggestions made? Also humans. That is, data classification, possible suggestions, all are human activities. What AI does is, if you have intelligence, human intelligence is used for categorization and what I want to say is that humans are involved in development of this algorithm. Okay. So we know that humans have diverse opinions, V1, V2, V3. So diverse opinions of human beings will lead to different kinds of categorization of data, different kinds of advices. So data doesn't lead to an advice. Data is only an input. There are certain theories that lead to advice, and differences in theories are differences among humans. Take for example diabetes. Why diabetes? You take overweight. Computer can give a lot of data, but how overweight has to be handled, there are so many theories. How diabetes has to be handled, so many theories. Even on a disease, there is no one view. There are so many schools of thought on diabetes, schools of thought on diet. So what can AI do? AI will be programmed as per the schools of thought. So AI decision is not some decision coming from some extraterrestrial source or divine source. AI decision is vulnerable to human errors, subjected to human disagreements, because of which man will apply his own judgment. Okay, so it is not that the data itself is coming out to be some mysterious advice. It is not like that Google Maps. Google, the way we trust Google Map, we can't trust a therapist, we can't trust a dietitian, we can't trust a doctor, because there are so many schools and various ideas that go into a medical advice or therapeutic advice and many other things. So human choice will be involved. So the idea that the humans will not have free will and they will subordinate their intelligence to AI and they will do it so willingly is not at all true. That is overestimating AI and hugely underestimating man. So this is the main thing. So there is going to be free will, and free will based institutions will still be cherished. In fact, if you see historically, what is happening now is that as there is more technology, there is more free will. Technology did not reduce, but of course Harari may say this kind of technology is different. Okay, but I don't think so. AI will give more choices and of course more chances for man to pursue. So free will is going to increase, and I think the entire reflexivity of the culture will increase. Reflexivity means not going by the tradition, but reshaping the institutions of the culture to the taste of the members of the culture. That is reflexivity. Reflexivity will increase, free will increase. So there are going to be more choices. AI will enhance the choices, not reduce. Okay. So that is about man versus AI. Next, let us look at society now. In society, few elite and so many useless. Okay. Similar to what Marx thought. But where did Marx fail? Marx didn't think that these people only will compete and give more incentives. That is, elite competes. Elite competes. And in their competition, people will be recruited and all will be helped. All will be helped. Marx thought capitalism would lead to very clearly two distinct classes. But what happened? Capitalists competed and then they recruited and everybody upgraded. Of course, inequality is increased. Inequality is increased. I think now also this will be the same trend. Inequalities will increase. Why? Because of genetic and AI, human possibilities increase. When the possibilities increase, social inequalities also will increase. So technology in general is contributing to inequalities. So the same trend will continue. Like industrial revolution benefited all, this time this technology also will benefit all. because elite will compete and then recruit lesser beings and train. All can be upgraded. Harari thinks very few people will upgrade themselves and many will be useless. It is not like that. Man is such a complex learning system that he will easily be a much better person. He will educate, he will learn. There is a lot. So this kind of complete division will not take place. So my point is that this technology is going to help all, and man will be better person. His mind will improve. His society will improve. Because artificial intelligence and these things will give more reflexivity, more choices, more opportunities. So it will improve. And democracy, liberalism are not going to be under threat. So this is all force for good. Of course, for any technology, you require certain safeguards and you need to do them. We are not discussing that, but we are discussing whether this poses a fundamental threat to the society. I don't think so. And more importantly, one more thing that Harari is missing is that it is not technology alone. Technology plus environment we have to look into. Climate change is one very important threat. So this climate change will force the mankind to be at the lower end rather than become homo deus and things like that. So if you take technology and environmental interface, the net impact is that it will help, technology will help. That's all. In fact, climate change will force mankind to look into many other issues rather than upgrading themselves. So what I think is that we really don't need to worry about this. I think the net contribution of this is that it helps all. It will raise inequalities. Okay, but institutions will change. Institutions will change. I think it contributes to better society and better mind. Okay. Why better mind? In general, mind is improving. Social institutions are improving. This has been the trend, and this technology also will contribute to the same trend. I don't see why there should be a reversal of this process, because be it biometric data or data that is available to the common, all private data gathered, as I said, will help us to understand the unconscious of the society. As I said, so much of private data is being dumped into the well of the unconscious of the society. And if you probe into it, it contributes to better understanding of the society and the nation. Okay. So these are all good things. So only threat is that all this progress may be upset by threat from environment. But technology left to itself will only be a force for good. So Harari's analysis, I think, is largely misleading, and his neglect of climate change, which is the most serious threat, and making technology as the number one threat, is a reflection of skewed prioritization. Thank you.